Hey, how you doing? It's Clayton here from howtodrawcomics.net and buttonbrostudios.com. Big welcome to the show. We have got Dan Lawlis in the house. He is our first guest on this new interview series that we've got on YouTube and also on the HTDC podcast as well. Dan, welcome. It's absolutely amazing to have you here, and I've been looking forward to this very moment for a long time. I know it's been something that we've wanted to do.
I think it's been about 9 months since because I remember working on the Kozor
Mm-hmm.
um, on December, right? Wasn't it like December? December, January, somewhere in there. We are trying to get it finished and ready to go, and then we were talking then, like, yeah, we got to do a stream, and then I don't know. I mean, you got busy, I got busy, and we really didn't follow up on that until till now, which is great. Now, have you? Were you super busy and now you're getting a little more time, or what's because I mean I'm not as much doing as many shows, or are you cutting back on that, doing something else, or I'm
Yeah, we,
curious.
we we have been doing less shows because we just really got super busy with Kozo. It was rounding up to the 2 year mark. We were really starting to feel the pressure from our backers, the burnout that one has when they're working on a project for 2 years as well becomes very extreme. The book just drags on and on and on, and you really have nothing left in the engine to keep you going. All the fuel is running dry. And so we were getting to that point and knew that the only way that this book was going to get fulfilled is if we placed all of our attention on it, gave it absolute immersion, and thought about nothing else but getting the book done. And so we did cut down on the streams a lot because they take up time and they are a necessary part of the process, as I'm sure you've come to learn as well. Are you
Hmm.
planning on putting out your own book sometime soon? I know that you're working on own projects at this point in time.
Yeah,
You're
I
doing
mean,
interiors, you're doing a lot of covers, but I'm sure kind of the game now with this independent
yeah,
stuff. You've got to get online, show your face, and engage
right.
that audience, and it can take
Well, that's
time.
sort of it. I'm testing the waters. My plan was I thought I would come in and sort of into this independent community and see where I could help out. And at the same time, that helps them, it helps me, because people get to see you and get to know you and interact with you, and you
Yeah.
start to build an audience and trust and all that sort of thing. So I thought this would be a good way to sort of almost like pay my dues, because that's one thing I felt too, is like a lot of these guys came in here, and they were the point of the spear, and they really they took all the shots, and I'm sort of coming
Mm.
in there. It's like I felt like, hey guys, thanks for all the heavy lifting. Now I'll take over. You know what I mean? It just didn't feel right. It felt like I needed to kind of come in and sort of help out. You know what I mean? Kind of strengthen up other people's campaigns, see what I can do,
You
and
want it to
then
add some value.
yeah, add some value, and then we'll see if they actually show interest too in my work, and if they like it, and I had getting pretty good positive feedback. So yeah, that's a real possibility. I have written a story a long time, or about a
That's
year ago,
awesome.
and it's ready to go. But I just, I'm not, I don't have to do it. I kind of like, it'd be great to do it, but it's a lot of work, as you know.
Oh, it's a
So
huge amount of work, yeah.
I'm just like, and ask you this now. You also have family, right? Do you have, you have young ones or something?
Yeah, I've got a wonderful partner, uh, Erica, who really deserves a medal because she holds everything together as far as the domestic life is concerned. She
Right.
makes sure that the abode is nice and tidy and comfortable, and she looks after the little one pretty much all full time, which gives me all the opportunity in the world that I could ever wish for to be able to work on my own passions, my own ambitions, and keep the business floating.
Yeah.
And so we've
Well,
got a really nice setup
yeah.
there, and it does give me that time to really just focus on, well, bringing home the bacon, but also putting everything that I can into these comic book projects and howtodrawcomics.net as well, which I need. I need that focus. It's really important that that remains unbroken in order to get things done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I, I, I want to do that too. I love my skills and stuff like that. I've labeled my YouTube
Mm.
channel "How to Draw Comics" too, and
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I
sweet.
can I can see like a possible team up between us, in that regard.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of interesting because you have a different perspective. You've got more of the '90s flair. I've got the old school stuff. It's kind of interesting to have that that mix. There's things I don't know about you, things you don't know, but perhaps
Yeah.
we could teach each other. But
Well,
it's a
that's
lot
why
of
it's so
fun. But
great to have you here. Because I feel like everyone's going to be able to get to know Dan Lawlis now. And I know that I was telling you, Corey and I really only just came across your work in the last year or so, but you've been around. No, has it been a year or has it been more than a year?
it's been about
Time
a
has
year since I
flown.
really just. I mean, I've been found for
Mm,
a while, and
yeah.
but I didn't really. I was like, when do I kind of come out? Well, the pandemic kind of helped me in that decision, a little bit, but
Oh, yeah.
because it was like because it was I'm working in advertising, and it was pencils down in advertising too. Pencils
Oh,
down in
wow.
advertising,
Really?
pencils down in because there was nothing. There was no they didn't know what to do.
Just no work
So
coming
the
through?
advertisers weren't advertising. They were commercials and things like that. So it's like just didn't have I didn't have any work.
Yeah.
Periods. I thought,
So it
well,
dried
as
up
long
in
as
almost
this
every
downtime.
industry.
Pardon me.
So
What you said?
it dried up in almost every industry,
Yes,
by the
yes. It was
sounds of it.
everybody. I mean, the restaurant industry, of course, was devastated, obviously, and things like
Mm.
that. So businesses that won't come back can't come back. It's awful. But um, yeah. Anyways, getting back to like the family stuff. This is past year. My wife and I became empty nesters. So I'm actually, it's at the beginning. I'm at the other side of it. And so it's kind of like, what do I do? I've got probably 10 years left in my career. I could stay in advertising or I could do comic books. But suddenly, and I thought comics were over because when I was in it from 87 to 97, and working at different, Marvel, DC, just one couple issues of DC, and then Dark Horse, a lot of Dark Horse. But after 10 years, I was broken and I was, here's the thing: is you're making $100 a page. I could do about a page a day. Maybe that meant about like $400 a week. That's 20 grand a year. You can't raise a family on, it just isn't going to
That's
happen.
tough.
So
Yeah.
I said, I started looking around. I found storyboards, and I had to go into that. So I've been that since. And but I was off. I thought I can't make money at it. I can't. I love them, but I can't make money. And with crowdfunding, there's actually a possibility to I don't need to make a lot of money, just make a living, like middle class living kind of thing. So I, not rich, it's just, but I have to make that certain amount of dollar value so I can retire. I got a, retirement fund and all that kind of stuff that
Of
I'm working on
course.
for 30 years. And, so it's just, there's a possibility now. I mean, and another thing too, is the comic book crowdfunding is so exciting because you can, put more time into comic. That's what I was so frustrated in comics because they wanted a monthly comic, and I just can't get better. I can't do a monthly comic. It's just it burns you out. You're drawing every day, and it's
Oh, yeah.
just it's exhausting, and then someone will ink over your stuff, and they just don't care, and it's just I hated it. I left it with I left it saying smell you later to the industry, so I did not like it. And
It seemed,
also, oh, go ahead. I was going to say also, it was
yeah.
lonely. It was really, really lonely. This is before this stuff, this internet stuff, and I'm drawing on a piece of paper by myself in my room. It drove me nuts. I was just like, this sucks. There's no interaction with other people, other artists. Now, some guys join studios, but I was, I'm in Michigan. There's nobody here, but
Mm.
but except for John Malin.
Oh, yeah. Sounds a
But
little
I
bit
didn't know.
soul crushing. Was that,
It was so crushing. Yes, it broke my heart. I say
yeah,
comics breaks your heart. I would say that would be a good way to say it. It kind of broke my heart. But
yeah,
here's the thing: is I never really. That was not my greatest. I mean, I love comics, but not the way I love family, people, friends.
of
So
course.
That's what still gives my satisfaction. Always will. Comic books, I love them, but not the same way. And it's I just enjoy. I just enjoy them as a side thing, kind of fun. But if I could do it, it'd be great. But we'll see. It's because making that transition to bringing supplanting the advertising income with comic book income is not it's no easy no small task, obviously. So
Mm-mm. So is that the
we'll see
place
what
you're
happens.
in now? Are you
Yes,
still, right? Okay. But you are
I still
working on
do
some comic book
advertising.
projects.
Pardon me.
So you're working on some comic book projects at the moment, right?
Yes.
Cool. And
Well,
and
I'm just like, these, I'm like doing two book covers right now. I'm working on, there's
mm,
a woman named Jaji Lamplighter, and I've been illustrating her book for several years. It's kind of like a Harry Potter, a girl version. And so I'm doing that right now. It's like, see, this, well, the great thing is I have my advertising stuff. It's not steady. It's freelance. So I don't know where my job's coming from. So the comics are great because they're not time sensitive necessarily, and I can fit them in between the advertising. The advertising is always time sensitive. It's like, can you do this tomorrow? I'll get a job at 10 o'clock at night, be done. I'll finish it at 4 in the morning. They have their
wow,
desktop, and I'm exhausted, and that's it.
you're fast.
So it'll be like one illustration or a couple illustrations that, rough kind of stuff.
Mm.
It's not finished stuff, which is great sometimes because sometimes it's just when you don't have time, that's almost the best. And sometimes they look the best. Have you noticed that too? Well,
I have, yeah. Giving me too much time to overthink my artwork is never a good thing.
yeah,
If I've got that pressure under me or on top of me to get it done, I'm going to be sitting there completely engaged with it, and I won't be overthinking every single little line that I lay down onto the page. I swear that is a luxury that only comes with
panic.
working for yourself, because sometimes when you're working for yourself and there's no one there to enforce a deadline, because let's face it, it's pretty difficult to enforce your own deadlines. If you're just working for yourself and it's only you holding you accountable, what punishment are you going to really put upon yourself if you don't get that thing done? There's not
Right.
really anything out there that is going to be that horrible. It'll motivate you enough to really meet that deadline. And so we artists, and I'm sure it's the case for you, although I won't speak for you, but I know that I will take every second that I can to work on a single piece and make it as amazing as possible. And then if I've got more time after that, I will overdo it and I will perfect
Yeah,
the
yeah,
heck out of it until I run out of time.
yeah. You know what's this is I have an interesting question for you because it
Mm,
mystifies me. I'll draw something and then I'll try to redraw that drawing, like I'll draw a sketch, and then I'm gonna
hmm.
try to make it into something bigger, make it finish it up or something. And I
Yeah.
can't do it. I can't duplicate it. I can't duplicate my own artwork. Do you ever have that experience where you
Mm.
draw something that looks great, you're just like, and I'll draw it a second time, it doesn't have the same magic, it doesn't have the same feel. It's very odd. Yeah, very odd
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like if I'm too careful in the beginning and I'm really trying to make sure that it's going the direction that I want it to go, if I'm being a control freak, it it just doesn't work out. I really need to loosen up, not think as much, and just let my hand move upon the page and work its magic. I've got a
Yeah.
general idea in mind. If I've got a general idea, that's all I need. And that's when the best outcome is going to happen,
Yeah.
is if I just work loosely, work quickly, and don't think too much. Don't worry about making it perfect. That's where I run into problems, is trying to perfect things too early on. And then I've got that beautiful
It's a
thumbnail
little,
sketch there if everything goes well, and I can take that thumbnail sketch and work straight over the top of it. But here's the thing, if I try to redraw it, I get what you're talking about, which is
yeah.
it's just impossible to capture that same soul, that same flair that was there in the initial
Yeah, isn't it
thumbnail.
funny?
It's so
Odd.
strange. And I think it's because you reach a certain point within your abilities where there's portions of drawing that you've learned that become unconscious competence. And when you start to really analyze them and monitor those processes, your brain tricks you into thinking that, oh, wait a second. I'm consciously trying to be aware of the moves I'm making here. I only do that when I'm learning something for the first time, which means I mustn't have mastered it yet. And so your brain thinks everything it's learned thus far may not actually be as correct as it initially assumed it to be. And so it's almost like you're going back to the beginning and relearning. You're at least in that state, which is why I think that We don't perform as well as we do when we're not thinking about it and we're just going with the flow.
Yeah, yeah. I have noticed though, as I mean, I've having done this for 30 years now. Uh,
Mm.
like I would describe it as like your first when you're first starting out, you get a lot of crappy drawings, and
Yeah.
you throw your pencil across the room and that sort of thing, and then
Hmm.
you get maybe they're half of them are good, and then then they're good, and I'm getting to that point where I really don't do really bad ones. Bad ones, okay. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like I don't do too many stinkers anymore. But it's sort of a once you do kind of learn a lot about the things how to draw and stuff like that. It does become more easy, and actually that's what I like
Mm.
about the stage of the art I'm in now. I am at my peak as far as my skills, I think. Although some of that raw energy from being young is missing,
Hmm.
a little bit of that.
So you're having a bit more
Dwayne,
fun
I'm
with it
gonna
now?
say. I'm enjoying it quite a bit because I know what I'm doing more,
Mm.
and that's more fun when you kind of know what's kind of going to happen, and that's exciting. Um, but even when I was younger,
For sure.
like you mentioned, like loosen up. It sounds kind of corny, but I think I always thought of the force where you kind of you just kind of feel it, you
You
really
invoke it.
feel it flowing through you. You just kind of let it go, and like like that starship scene at the end, you just let go, and that's kind of the way it feels sometimes for me. Where I just like I'll just scribble and just play with just completely let everything go, and I think that's important to kind of just getting a feel for the whole thing. There's a feeling in there. It's kind of a I don't know what it is. You can't really describe it. Of something, whatever
Mm.
whatever that maybe the thing that makes us want to draw in the first place. Even that feeling. So
It's really magical
I don't know.
when you're in that zone because it's not always there. It can't always be relied on, unfortunately. There are some days you
I
wake up
know.
and the last thing you want to do is draw, and you've got
Yeah,
to find and grasp it, whatever little thing, pull whatever little string there is to actually get in that mode and start making things happen.
yeah.
And
And
oh,
if you just start, you just that's really what it is
that's the hardest
hesitation.
part, isn't it?
It's more worry about failing on a piece of
Mm,
that's what it really is, that nervousness, and then but you just plow through it. I mean, what are you gonna do?
yeah. So you're
So
comfortable with your art now and you're having fun with it, but I'm
mhm.
sure that that wasn't always the case. I'm sure that back in the day, how long have you been drawing for? How many decades would you say now?
Well, here it's I'm 57.
Hmm.
It so I mean, I, well, I'm one of 8 kids, and I think, but I'm 7, so I think by the time we came around, my brother and I, near the end, we were just like they just like here, draw. Here's a piece of paper. Draw. Shut up and don't bother. There's so much going on,
Yeah,
and we were content. So we would sit on the step, and I would draw monsters, creatures, aliens, and stuff, and he would draw cars and all that stuff, and we did that for a living. So he became, an industrial designer, and I
that's
became,
amazing.
a comic guy, and I kind of followed him, into it. There's not a family besides us two, so
Mm.
but yeah, we just played off each other, and also we were highly critical of each other of cruelty, and that became a motivation because it'd be like I'd be like, what do you think of this? Like, well, that head looks too small, and I'd be like, all right, all right. So I'd go back and I'm gonna make this thing so good you can't, and I'd show it to me like, looks pretty good.
Mm. That'll
That's
light a
really good, I
fire
guess.
underneath you, help give you that extra
So I
push.
made it so he could not criticize it. It's like, what do you think of that, buddy? So we
It's
were we
cool
were,
to have someone like
we were,
that
we were
to work next to.
yeah, right, brutally honest. That's actually, you need that sometimes. But
Mm.
yeah,
That's what
so
makes you
you push
better,
each other. That's good too.
for sure.
So you got
And
your bro. I got a bro who kind of pushes me. You got it, isn't it? You guys
yeah,
challenge each other, and you kind of sit off of and say, hey, what do you think of this? And learn from each other, and learn, look at whatever it is. Yeah.
yeah, me and Corey, we certainly do that, and I'll run my work past him all the time. I'll draw something, and I'm never sure of myself. Believe it or not. I know some of you watching and listening might have seen my work before. You might know of it and you might see it. As you see anyone else's artwork, it's like, how did this thing happen? You see the end result and you just think it's like some kind of magician's trick. But there is definitely a process that everybody goes through, and no artist, I gotta imagine there's a very small percentage of artists who think that their work is the shit right off the bat. I think a lot of us second guess ourselves, and it's so valuable to have that second pair of eyes there to show your artwork to and to get an honest opinion from. And usually a brother is going to do that. Your bro isn't really going to just give you compliments to make you feel good. Not like mum will.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. I
I'm
heard
always
something.
showing. Yeah, go ahead.
I heard something just the other day about
Mm.
somebody said that he in an interview said he self he every painting it was blood, sweat, and tears. He wasn't sure it was going to work out and all this kind of stuff. You wouldn't think so. I mean, he's artistic genius. You would think, right? But no, it was hard work. It was really disciplined. It had to. Those were all real hard pieces of work to produce and make great.
Oh yeah.
And he probably looked at him. He probably looks at some of it and cringes. We don't, but he probably does. Um,
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's so true that you are always going to be your worst critic. I
yeah.
think every artist, so
You kind
many
of
of
have to be
us,
though.
we're looking at our work and we're seeing things there that nobody else would ever pick up on, but we obsess over it. We're like, man, we got to iron out this kink right now. We got to fix that. We've got to polish this just that little bit more. And to us, it makes all the difference. But to the onlooker, to the viewer, they really aren't ever probably going to notice everything that put into that final piece of artwork that they now get to experience, which is somewhat beautiful because it's almost this intimate journey that you as the artist get to share with your work, and that history is something that can only ever be known between the two of you. You know, uh,
Yeah.
I think
And
that
I got a
that's the
question for you.
connection. Yeah.
Some artists can do this and others can't. I can't. Do you
Mm.
have a vision that pops in your head complete?
Yeah, I used to. I think when I was younger, I would get more ideas like that. It would pop into my head and I'd just have to draw it. Now, however, I don't really start off with anything. I just start moving the pencil around on the page and I try
Yeah,
out a
that's
few
what I do.
poses, a few compositions, and we see what happens. We let the chips fall where they may, so to speak.
Yeah, that and another thing I'll do is I'll look at files of art. I collect all kinds of fantasy art, on just the internet websites and stuff. And I'll
Yeah.
flip through those and I'll get an idea. I'll see a color thing. I'll see a metallic surface. I'll see
Mm,
something that kind of like makes me, hey, what if I did that color with that? And so kind of a combination of these that springboard you because sometimes nothing in, nothing out. You know what I mean? It's like you kind of got to
so
put
true.
something in the mixer. And then
Yeah.
because that's what it kind of art is. You're taking all this information, putting it in your blender, and you get your smoothie of art. Kind of. So
Very
it's
true.
different every time.
I've
But
always
the
got my
ingredients you put
reference
in.
sheets up.
Pardon me.
I've
Go
always
ahead.
got my reference sheets up. So
Yeah.
I use an application called PureRef. I don't know if you've heard of it before, but what you can do with it is you can go onto Google Images or Pinterest, find whatever references, hit a note with you, and paste them straight into this application. Create a nice vision board for whatever next piece it is you're about to work on, and then you can save that out. And it's great because you can zoom in on different references and move them around the page, compose it however you want. And
Hmm.
I just love things like that because whether it's style references or subject matter that you need to get accurate within your drawings, it's just great to have it all there in one place. And usually I'll set it up for different projects. So I'll have one reference board for, say, Kozo, another one for, let's say I'm doing a client's project. I have a reference board for that. There was one client who wanted me to do layouts for a comic book which was set in Japan. Now, I've never been to Japan, and maybe I've got some kind of generic idea of what it might look like inside my brain, but I got to jump online and find some actual references that show me really how it is so I can fill in those details because whatever's going on up here inside the old noggin is often very, very basic, lacking any level of reasonable resolution that you can rely on when it comes to your art.
You kids are spoiled.
I know we are. We
I
we really
had
are, but think about the kids that are even beyond me. So I was born in the 90s. Think about those born in
right.
2010.
Yeah,
You know,
they'll just be able to attach electrodes to their head and be able to put it out on a piece of paper. But
oh
I
yeah,
and when I started out, I had massive file cabinets of pictures that I had saved in all the different files and categories. I actually just ended up, I think I threw it all away because I was like,
oh wow,
I could, because I had to have car reference. Here's the ones for the cars, underside of car, everything. I
mm.
went through Smithsonian magazines. That's part of your artistic training was actually just going through, flipping through magazines and pulling out all, you buy a bunch of magazines and take out the reference and you have, big reference file. Now I can go online and go, well, let's see, I need a, Taj Mahal, and
For sure.
it's right there. And it's just so easy. It's just incredible what you can do now.
It's an amazing time we live in. But let me ask you,
Yeah.
Dan, do you think that with all of these amazing tools and resources at our disposal now, has it made people more complacent and lazy? I feel like they're just not being taken advantage of enough.
What do you mean by that exactly?
So, for example, I come from both comic books and video games, and you've got things like for comic books, on the comic book side, you've got incredibly reasonably priced applications for drawing digitally, reasonably priced hardware. I mean, some of those applications are even free now, right? You've got an abundance of learning resources online, YouTube, whatever. Same with video games. You got free game engines that you can start building your games in. Same with movies as well. I mean, you can just take out your phone and create a movie now. And I remember going to school, university, even primary school. We would try to figure this stuff out on our own. Everything that you wanted to learn about, you had to pay for, right? There was no free tutorials on YouTube. You would have to pay for it. All of the software, I mean, I think there was Photoshop, and that was about it. And it was insanely priced. There was no Clip Studio Paint back then, and there just wasn't as much knowledge freely available as there is now. David Finch wasn't on YouTube telling you exactly how to do stuff live where you could ask him questions. The only bit of knowledge you could get from David Finch was from a little website called the Nomon Workshop where he would sell you a course.
Mhm.
And so I feel like nowadays, with all of that stuff that people have got to be able to take advantage of and essentially take their abilities and everything that they want to achieve them with them to the absolute limit, you would think there would just be just so many people, like a sea of people that would be taking that stuff and going far and beyond what we could have ever hoped to have achieved. We're a little bit older now. We don't have as much energy as we did when we were younger, but I don't know. And I feel the reason that I say this, Dan, and maybe you can relate with it because I know you've had some teaching experience as well, is because I was teaching in a couple universities and TAFEs here in Melbourne for a good few years, about 8 years, and you would always get, maybe two or three really motivated students who would just wipe out the rest of the competition. But a great majority of those students, some of them didn't know why they were there. Some of them didn't really care about being there and would waste a lot of their time. And I was just dumbfounded. I thought, man, with all these resources at your disposal right now, do you know what you could be achieving? It it's unfathomable what you could be doing with this information. And all you would have to do, a lot of people out there listening right now, all you would have to do to learn most of what you need to know when it comes to drawing comics is just sit on YouTube and actually watch a tutorial, a quality tutorial for more than 5 minutes. Just sit there for the whole hour or so that it goes for and actually implement the knowledge that you're getting from it, put it into practice, and you would be amazed at the jumps, the leaps that you could make within your development as an artist. So that's kind of where I'm coming from there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know, because I mean, I was in art
Mm.
school, and most people were blowing it off back in
Blowing it off, right?
yeah,
Back in the
80s.
day too,
And
huh?
that's there's a
Yeah.
difference. So everybody would go, to out to lunch. I would go to the library and hit the books and study the great illustrators, and really,
Mm.
I knew that I wanted to do great stuff, and as the best I could, anyways.
Yeah.
And so I really worked really hard. Everything that I have worked out to achieve was really hard work of really studying, like no different than studying for your math assignment or anything, or learning a
Hmm.
language or anything. I was there. I wanted to learn it. I wanted to study it, and I'm still studying. Like
For sure.
I did a picture just the other day of Mary Jane Watson. I put it on Instagram.
Oh, amazing.
That's a study. I had a reference, and I was studying Adam Hughes and how I kind of went about things, studying other artists, seeing if I can pick anything up, if I can learn anything. So I'm pushing 60. I'm still studying. I'm still learning. It
You're
never
pushing
stops.
60. You look great for
Yes.
60. Someone pushing 60.
So yeah, that's another thing. Take care of yourself. I
Oh, yeah.
get out there.
Very
You
true.
can't just sit around and do stuff. You gotta
Mm.
do. Get out there and ride a bike and hike in
Yeah.
the woods and all that kind of fun stuff.
I've got to do that a little bit more. It's
Yeah,
especially important for comic book artists, isn't it? Isn't it?
it is. It is because
Yeah,
we have a sanitary lifestyle. It's
we
yeah,
certainly do.
it's not good. So yeah, and so
Yeah,
that's what I try to stay active. So
for sure. I guess in some ways, if I really think about it, I'm less motivated than I was back then too. Right now, with all the distractions and the things that are taking my attention away from really what I should be doing, all the fun things. I mean, YouTube and social media and Instagram, they're all a lot more fun now than actually sitting there and drawing a comic book page. And the funny
we're
thing
all
is
guilty
that
of that. We're
the
all
funny thing is the comic book page used to be the fun thing. Do you remember that?
right,
When
right,
when there was nothing else to do but draw that comic book page and it was the
right.
most
Yeah,
exciting thing
yeah,
available. That's all
yeah.
changed now. And
Well, for me, when I was working, I started got into storyboards, and it's working through the night and all that stuff. I
mm,
would listen to talk radio. That's how
oh
I
yeah,
made it through, because I had to
awesome.
hear human voices. I had to hear people talking, and they were, so I'd listen to weird things. Like, I remember this one show called Midnight Trucking Network. Some guys, like, they're just, they're all long haulers, guys calling into the show and stuff.
Hmm.
And but that was really interesting. Busy when I can have some voices. So what I do when I'm working, listen to these things. I listen to these live streams all the time, and I
Ah,
just and then of course the cool thing, back then, you listen to talk radio. There was no, you could interact. Now you can, like, type in a comment, I don't know about you, but I mean, for me, if your comment gets read, even you get that little thrill, don't you? Get that, like, oh, Dan
oh
Lawlis said,
yes,
that little
yeah,
dopamine kind of thing. Ooh, I'm on TV. It's so stupid, but
it's so
it's
true.
fun. That human connection is. I mean, that's really what storytelling is about. Really, when you tell a story, you're connecting with another person, and so this new media is. I really think it's a superior media for sure. Connecting directly with your fans, that you can find out right away. I'd put a picture up on Instagram or Facebook, Twitter. I get the immediate results. I literally, like, and it's like, wow, that's really cool. Back right away. Or you don't get any likes, you're like, oh, darn it, must be not, So generally, hot girls can be more likes, but
Oh yes, of course.
but so yes, I'm gonna start drawing girls just to get that dopamine, that little like. um,
Yeah,
But I'm just saying the new media, I think it's really exciting and fun. And I actually found I am actually working harder at comics now than I used to,
Oh.
simply because of the like, oh, I got to show so and so. Like, like I get together with these guys. I don't know if you've seen they do the Players show every week. And Gabe
Mm-hmm.
Altaib. And I have never been able to ever talk to any other people about art. And all of a sudden, I've got a penciler, an inker, a colorist. Then there's Aaron LaPresse, he does it all, and they
Mm.
love what I love, and we're talking about stuff, and it is just, I mean, I'm just loving it. I just, it's a lot of fun, so I'm motivated, like I'm, kind of jazzed up and stuff
Oh, that's
to
incredible.
do work like I never really was before. So
Yeah.
I just bounce off of other people. That's it feels like to me, like
Mm.
my motivation gets fired up when I see other people, working, and like, oh yeah, I want to, this is fun. It makes it fun, it's not boring
Mm-hmm.
and lonely, and that kind of sort of thing.
It
So
feels like it sounds to me as if your experience in comics had been very solitary up until recently.
sure, absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely. It's a very weird thing is I meet also meeting guys, my old guys, older guys like me, with who are have older children and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of conservative, Christian type guy, and so they're like me, and like I never had people like that, like just like, oh, they're an artist, like, I'd go to a party or something, and they all talking sports and stuff, and it's like, I don't mind sports, but I don't know anything about sports, like they seem to know
Same here.
everything about sports, and I'm just like, I've never met another, oh, you draw comics, like that's never going to happen anywhere. But now, thanks to the interaction of the internet here, I'm actually could meet like you. I'm talking to someone. I mean, talk about technology. We're talking freaking across the globe right now. It's incredible.
I know. Can you
I can't
believe it?
get over that. It's just amazing.
We might have
We're
never
we're
met if we were born in a different time, you know? Well, if
right.
this never happened, this
Yes,
technology.
it's extraordinary. It's simply extraordinary. I remember, I think the first time it happened, where my kids came in. I was working at a drawing table, and
Mm.
my kids came in the room, and they go, "Hey, look, it's mom!" And it was my wife and her sister had gone to, and I thought, "Oh, that's a nice picture of them," And then they go, "Hey, Dan, hi!" And like they're waving at me from this phone. I'm like, "Holy shit! They're freaking in Italy," And I just couldn't believe it. That technology is just it's extraordinary, amazing.
it's incredible, and it's so wonderful to see what we're able to accomplish with it when it comes to our comic book art, networking with other creators and marketing our stuff to our own audiences. I mean, can you believe that if you look at the amount of likes that you get on a single piece when you post it up onto, let's say, Twitter, Dan, imagine that many people in a room. That's a lot of people. You know, when you really think about it, it's almost like we take these likes and engagement for granted. But if you think about physically how many people that would be, like say you were doing an exhibition of your art and that many people came to the exhibition to take a look at it.
Yeah,
That's an amazing thing to think about. It almost makes it sort of surreal. I feel like that's what I think
yes,
about whenever I get a like on my stuff.
yeah. It's hard to. It's some detachment that happens with the internet, as well
There
as the
is, yeah.
connection. So yeah,
Yeah. So when it comes to, I really love the tip that you gave when it comes to focusing on your work. You know, listening to these streams that people do helps you to sit there and stay focused. I'm always confused about that. Sometimes it works, and sometimes I find it distracting. But I tell you what,
yeah.
when I need it,
It
I need
depends
it.
if they're showing a funny video. Then I'm working, and I'm just like, oh, I gotta see this.
Exactly, exactly.
And
But I'm wondering as well for because we have a lot of people who come onto the channel and see these videos and they're just starting out for the first time as beginners. And it was probably a long, long time ago that you, no offense, that you started drawing. But where did you begin and where did you learn to be able to draw the amazing things that you're able to draw today? What
I think the
process
book
did you go through?
the book that did it for me was the How to Draw Comics by Marvel, the Marvel Way.
A classic.
That was weird because I was in high school and and actually at the time I didn't have much money, so I had my paper out money, so I had like a I don't know why I just loved comics. I love comic art, and I had about 10. That was
Hmm.
about it.
Yeah.
I call them my drawing lessons. I used to love. I just copied them, and I loved drawing right from the start. Just oh, I can't remember. I just loved to draw. Anyway, so I was in high school, and probably the freshman even, and I had my folders were littered with comics and drawings. And some kid came up, they go, "I got a book for you. It's a how to draw comics book," and I almost rolled my eyes because like yeah, how to draw comics. Seen those before. What I really
Mm.
want is a how to draw comics like the Marvel way kind of. I didn't say that to him, but I just like
Yeah, right.
that's what I really wanted. So I imagined this book existed before I saw it, and I hoped that
Wow.
and so he brought it the next day, and I was like, it was like I was handed the Holy Grail. I was like, oh my gosh, it's the Marvel way was and not only that, but it has Stan's blurbs throughout it where he's like, "You true believer," and you could do and accept no substitute Marvel. And so I was just like, I was drinking the Kool-Aid. So it's totally, I was a Marvel nut, and I just loved comic books. And so, there was basics in there, but I mean, I guess I had always been interested in art, and I can't really remember exactly learning, but I just wanted to draw it, and I drew it. I copied them and stuff like that, and so it sort of developed. But I always my advice to anybody heard it in art school was this guy Milton Glaser, a really good designer, and he said, "Copy everything. Copy your copy. Really copy. Don't worry
Mm.
about becoming a clone. Your own style will emerge from that." And so I
So
really
true.
kind of took that to heart, and I think that's what you don't copy to plagiarize. Like you don't want to copy and then submit it as your artwork, but copy like crazy, master someone else's artwork. It's the old ways where you'd have a master and apprentice. The apprentice would follow the master's work and copy it, and eventually and it's something that
Yeah.
you just like I said, I was studying Adam Hughes the other day. I'm still copying the masters, uh, and
Mm.
that's how you get how you learn. So you know that's what I recommend. Every copy, not trace, but put it next to you and copy. Learn how to draw. Learn how to measure with your eye. That's what drawing is. Measure with your eye. So
For sure. Yeah. I think that's a great idea. And if you have multiple inspirations, I think that's really cool too because you are working from all these other artists and being influenced by their style, and eventually they go into this giant blender that becomes somewhat of a hybrid plus your own take, and ultimately looks like the sort of what you output onto the page is the kind of art that you were always inspired by. So not only do other people dig your art at that point after you've learned from all these amazing other artists that you look up to, but you also enjoy looking at it. And I think that's important too. You want to be able to look at the page, see what you're drawing, and go, hey, that's kind of cool. I'm proud of
yeah, yeah.
this.
Well,
This,
look at uh, Hergé. I think you say his name. The Tintin artist. His artwork looks a lot. He and Mobius were copying
oh,
Winsor
wow.
McCay.
Did
Winsor
not
McCay was.
know that.
Do you know Winsor McCay?
I don't know Winston McKay, no, but
Winsor
I
McCay
mean,
is the Little Nemo artist. He
mm.
look him up. His stuff is freakish, and he actually did one of the first animations ever, Girthy the dinosaur. Every
Oh,
cell.
wow.
This guy was unbelievably workhorse. Some of his gosh, do I have the book around there? It'd be nice if I did, but uh, yeah, I'll find this one now. But anyways, look up Winston McCay, and
I
then look
will.
up the Tintin book. You see the same sort of styles, the linear style of that drawing, and of course Mobius. And then
Yeah.
Mobius did just crazy imagination stuff. So it's like, and then they look at Bill Sienkiewicz. He copied Neil Adams. He was a Neil Adams clone. But then look how he emerged from that and became nothing like Neil Adams anymore. He's
Mm.
totally different. Or Travis Charez copying the Jim Lee style. and then how he then developed into his own self, but it was born out of that initial copying someone else thing, learning from
Yeah.
the person before you. So you really just got to master that stuff that you're trying to do, and your own style will plop out, because you wouldn't say Mobius is a clone of Winston McKay if you looked at it.
No.
No,
No, that's
so
what I mean. He's someone that seems like just such an original artist, and everybody looks at his work and is inspired, and he's influenced so many people as well.
yeah,
Some of the
yeah.
artists that we know today are very influenced by him.
Yeah,
But
I saw his stuff when I was just starting art school, and
mm,
some teacher just said, check this guy out. And I was like, this is really weird, but
yeah,
man, was it creative?
for
That's
sure.
that it's strange stuff. And I remember watching an interview of him. Did you ever see that Masters of Comic Book Art, uh, um, one with hosted by Harlan Ellison?
Oh no, I
And
didn't.
they've got interviews of Jack Kirby, Will Eisner, Frank Miller, Dave Sim, Mobius, Neil Adams. It's got so many great artists in there, and Jack Kirby. Did I mention Jack Kirby?
Hmm.
Um, and they're great. And the interview of Mobius is just fantastic. I
Oh, I'm
watched it
gonna have to
over and
look that
over
up.
again. It's short, but it's just it's just brilliant. And he was talking about in that interview this idea of dreaming awake, where he wanted to just like be drawing, but that sort of connect that to his dreams, whatever he just whatever came out in his mind, just opened his mind up, and it looked like it kind of worked. Maybe he had
Mm,
drug influences too.
maybe
I get the feeling that might have been part of the
could have
equation,
been.
but I mean, I think it's a bit of a myth that you need that. I think you can just imagine, it's a matter of letting go and with your imagination, and really being free, because we don't really realize we can do that on a piece of paper. You can just
Yeah.
just let it go, and that's not really that easy to do. Sometimes we always fall back on the crutches of what we be drawing. So
Yeah, for sure. It's difficult when we fall back on what it is we're most comfortable drawing, subject matter that we're used to. And I
mhm.
think some of the best ways to grow is to just break out of that as much as you possibly can. If
Yeah,
you're uncomfortable drawing, let's say animals, then spend a week drawing animals. If you're uncomfortable
hmm,
drawing foliage, trees and plants and
yeah.
whatnot,
I
then
always say you
spend
can
a week
tell
doing that.
you can tell a great artist if they can draw a good horse, because
Oh
horses
yeah.
are awful to try to draw. They're
Hmm.
they're so difficult to master, because they're gangly, like, sort of magnificent animals, and trying to capture that speed and strength, and I don't know, it's weird. They're very difficult to pull. I think like a lion might be a little easier, even those the creatures with the longer thin legs, like deer or something. I find more difficult to kind of get that right. I don't understand the movement. You can almost understand a lion, like it's pouncing,
Mm.
but the horse, it's like I don't get what that way. It's weird.
It's confusing. I mean, can you
Because it's
imagine
these
trying
four
to
legs
animate
going in
that?
all different. They have gaits and gallops, and they're different positions. Their legs will be in at different mints, and
Mm.
very difficult animal to draw. But you can. I mean, you can do it. Work for me, anyways. I
Such a
have had to work at
majestic
a.
animal to draw, though, as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, and
Beautiful
like I said,
stuff.
strange face, kind of bony and long, and just it's something that just. I mean, what I started to do is get those That's another thing that's great now. Pretty cheap, you can get a sculpture of these guys. I got those. Well, actually, here I can show you that. I mean,
Hmm.
I use these all the time. When I'm drawing, and
Oh
uh,
yeah, nice.
and it's like standard faces, and you can. I wish I had these when I was younger, because
Mm.
I can look at to get the shadow, the breakdown of the shadows on the face and the shapes that it
Yes.
makes as it turns. That's so helpful. It's just you need that little bit of extra confidence. I think this drawing angle is correct. Let me just put it in there. I mean, now with the computer, of course, they have all these apps that you can rotate things. But just if you want to draw on paper and that sort of thing, and you just want something to hold, they have all those sculptures now for $10 or $20 or something. It's a lot cheaper than you would imagine. So I wish I had those. But that's helped me with horses and things like that. Like I'm holding this sculpture of this horse, and like I didn't realize that the butt looks a lot bigger than the front, like from the top, like it gets like wider. Like, oh, I didn't know that. I rode a horse a couple times in my life, but I didn't look at it.
Mm.
So, but to be able to rotate it and look at it and turn it around and just kind of see what that feels like, it's those things are really good. So, I recommend sculptures having not just pictures, sculpture, 3D sculptures around. They're really helpful, I think.
Oh, yes. Yeah, 3D sculptures, especially if you've got a model there that's anatomically correct. I think you've got to
Right.
make
Yeah, and
sure
they
it's
make them
anatomically
so.
correct.
I just ordered the with the Phantom, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
had Flash door because I saw these look sculpted well. So I
Oh,
got them.
wow.
They're not perfect, but you just give you an idea of the musculature, and you can kind of just it's just all that stuff giving you a feel.
Hmm.
I actually think some of my understanding of the figure came from when I was a kid and I had the 6-inch high GI Joes.
Hmm.
Actually, I do have one of those. Hang on
Oh,
one
great.
second.
Yeah, grab it. That'd be cool. All right.
Here it is. This is actually from when I was a kid. I had this.
I love that.
But what I liked about these Joes was that I could really, I could put the rotation, the articulation was really good, and you kind of get them in a cool pose. And it's funny because I remember like going over to like a kid's house or something, a friend's house, and the Joes would be like this, and they'd be like, just if they're staying there, like that's not posed right. You got to pose it right. You
Mm.
got to get so it looks kind of natural.
Yeah, so
So
many points of articulation. That's
I think
great.
I think I had a feel for that stuff, from the start.
Mm.
I liked it. I like the movement. I like the energy. I love, if you can draw animals, you can draw horses. It's great because, the energy and the feel, the movement of the balance of a magnificent, beast or something. It's cool.
Yeah, for
Helps with
sure.
monsters and everything. So
It's awesome. And like you said, you can take some lights, light it however you want it, observe
yeah,
where the shadows fall and
yeah,
where the brightest highlights are going to be, which is so important if you want to have a style that incorporates dramatic lighting into
yeah,
what it is you're drawing.
yeah.
Something that I had a lot
Something
of
about
trouble
holding in
with.
your hand too. Something about the
Mm.
textile feeling of just, what does this feel like? What is it, as a chunk, as a mass.
Yeah, you're not just studying what it looks like, you're studying how it feels. And
Yeah.
on some level that's got to help. I'm
Yes, it
sure of
goes
it.
into the system. It's like submergence. Like if I get an assignment that's whatever it is, I will do all this internet research on it, and it's like submerged. Like when I just did like the Kozor picture for you guys, I was like,
Yeah.
remember I said, send me everything you got, all the information. I want to see all the pictures, and I'm just, it's just like it's studying. It's like studying for an exam again, and I got to come up with the right, the right thing, but I have to know the material, and
Mm.
then you can deliver and be on point. Hopefully, give it your best shot, anyways. But that's
Oh,
your
for
best
sure.
chance is just to download all the information you can possibly download. So
How did you enjoy drawing Chief Baron from our comic book Kozor?
that was a blast, man. That was great. I mean, I'm a Frazetta guy. I love
Mm.
all that stuff. So here was an
Mm.
opportunity to kind of do a guy swinging an axe. I mean, it's Conan. It's fun. It's
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's badass and stuff like that. So yeah, it
That's
was it
why
was just
I
great. It's not almost not work at that point when it's, I mean, it's work to get it right,
yeah.
but it's like it's kind of fun. And like I said, I'm getting to the point in my skill set that I kind of know what I'm doing, so it's less stressful and more fun a little bit, kind of, or it's still work, but
It is.
it's just kind of like I kind of know it's not going to be a total disaster.
Well, you've got that.
And so that's part of the fun too. It's like, this is going to be kind of cool. I think they're going to like it because I know how to do this. I think I know how to do this.
Mm. Hey, if you're having fun, that's gonna
Yeah,
come through in the final piece. It
right.
seems like you've got that confidence there now too, where you're not over. You don't feel the need to overanalyze everything anymore. You don't feel the need to have to struggle with it. I think it's so strange. Dan. But for me, when it comes to my artwork, I don't know if I'm a glutton for punishment, but I just get sort of bored and unmotivated if I don't have some kind of challenge, some kind of problem
Right.
that I have to solve. I don't know if you run into that or
No, no, no.
how to
That's
overcome
that's
it, but
exactly what you have to do. Is you? I think that's exactly what I do too. You've got to keep learning it because it's like, why do it? If it's not, if
mm,
you're not going to try to achieve something, really, you're pushing yourself to get. I just always getting better. It's like
yes.
just practicing. Like, you play a sport or you play a card game, whatever it is you're practicing. You play piano, whatever. You practice and getting good and try a different song, try something new,
Mm,
to challenge yourself because you'll get better. Just what do you call it? Sharpening your sword kind of thing. It's
yeah. Sharpening your blade.
That's right.
And yes, I think it's not just a matter of loving the action of drawing, it's also loving the learning process that you go through to
Hmm.
master it. You've got to
Yeah,
really love that journey. And I've
yeah,
realized that I do, you know?
yeah, yeah.
It's funny because your main motivation is to get away from that. Your main motivation is to be able to just become the perfect artist, to not even have to think about it and to just be able to project something down onto the page and not break a sweat. But in the end, I thrive so much more when I've got something to overcome, some obstacle to surpass. It's like a good
Right.
video game. I don't know if you play video games, Dan, but
I
when you,
I I did when my kids were small. I played
yeah,
yeah, but
like
you know what I realized though, that was getting like, this is taking a lot of
it
time.
gets in the way, doesn't it? Oh,
and,
yeah, I
and
haven't
so I
played a
had
video
to I
game in a
had to
long
kind of
time,
put
but
that stuff aside because it was getting away of my growth as an artist and stuff like that,
mm,
because it takes a lot of time to
it can
really
do.
get good at it. It's not something that, at least for me. Maybe we know all know guys, a couple of guys just seem to sit down and just plops out, like they just, like somebody in school. But I'm the guy who had to study, really work hard to get
Me
it good.
too.
I wouldn't, and so you have to. I don't mind that. I'm fine with that. But that's I know what it takes.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, for sure. It's like that next boss that you've got to overcome in the video game. You obsess
mhm.
over it until you're finally able to pass that level. That's how drawing feels to
Yeah,
me. It's probably why I haven't played any video
yeah,
games for a long time because the process of drawing is the video game for me. It's an
yeah.
awesome
It's
challenge.
like a problem
It
solving.
is. It
It's a
really, really
problem solving.
is.
Like, to this image for Camel Moon, for his boots and heels.
Hmm.
And so I get all the information, and I broke it down, like, okay, what that I can make, what's the features here that I can highlight that make them good. And he had those space helmets. I said, that's cool, I think I'll bring that in there. But the faces are masks. Like, I didn't necessarily want to zoom in on the face because there's not that much interest here. But I figure I got figure, I got muscle figure and some boots
Hmm.
and the hair color. And so how, so I'm trying to break it down, like, what's the best image what's the coolest image I can make with these features on this thing.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of it's problem solving. What do every illustration is kind of like that. Okay, the composition, putting it together is a problem, and how do I what's the solution to this problem.
Hmm.
It's a good way to look at anything, really. I mean, in art.
Truly, it is. I think maybe that's just something that we really love as artists as well. We like solving puzzles, maybe. And I think, just talking about the horses before and studying life, that's another wonderful outcome that is going to happen when you start getting into comic book art. You learn more about the world just as a byproduct. I know a lot
Sure.
more about how Japan looks, the kind of
Yeah.
architecture that you're going to find over in that completely different country that I've never been to, but only because I'm a comic book artist and I needed to study it in order to be able to draw it. So I
Yes.
think that that's another thing that's going to happen when you start really getting deep into the art of drawing comics because you need to be able to draw everything. Who knows what stories you will someday
Yeah.
tell and characters you will someday draw. Maybe they don't even exist. Maybe they are within a fantasy genre or a sci-fi universe that you've got to create from nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
It's
really
uh
exciting.
it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
Well,
do
we
you
just
you write? Are you're a writer too, right? I mean, you write these
yeah.
stories.
Yeah, so I've just gotten into writing comic books, and the
Did I mean?
thing
Did you
is,
write? Did you write Kozor?
I didn't write Kozo. Corey wrote Kozo. I'm writing another story that we've been working on called Borok, which is a spin-off to Kozo, exists in the same universe. And it's been a really cool experience. I've always been a storyteller, I think. It's just that I really liked telling stories through pictures. And I believe that one of the reasons that is because I love movies so much. I often say if I wasn't doing comic
Yeah.
books, I'd definitely be doing movies. And I'm right on the edge of really thinking about doing it at some point. I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe when I get too much arthritis in my hands, I'll start making movies instead. But I just really love it. I'm a big movie buff. Me and Corey, we caught up yesterday. We sat down, we watched a few movies, some horror movies actually. We watched one called House of Wax, would have been early 2000s. It was cheesy, of course, but it was actually pretty good. And every time I see a movie like that, I just go, man, I want to make movies now. But wait a second, I can because I'm a comic book artist. And I start
Hmm.
thinking about the scenes that I would choose and how I'd compose the shots. And
Yeah.
well, I do that in terms of a comic book format when it comes to writing out a story. And when I am writing a story for a comic book, I'll do a basic plot and then I'll write the rest of it doing thumbnails. I'll place in the speech bubbles that I want to place
Yeah.
in, figure out the scenes that I'm going to need in order to accomplish that particular section of the plot that will take so many pages to pull off. And that's my process. It's a little
Yeah.
unorthodox, but it works well for
Not
me.
necessarily, because you think about. I think Alfred Hitchcock did that, where he did little sketches. I think
Oh, there you
Steven
go.
Spielberg did
Oh,
did
no
uh,
way.
did little bits of little thumbnails and sketches. Of course, Hayao Miyazaki. I mean, he's really winging it, just forward and
Hmm.
just doing the art from the start and doesn't know where he's going to end. But
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's. I remember, boy, when I was in art school, I was, this is a good time to be, but 80s was a good time to be in art school too, because Frank Miller's Dark Knight just comes out,
Oh, yeah.
Watchmen just comes out, Blade Runner, the original, with the Sid Mead art, just comes out.
Beautiful.
We're all uh, gushing over Sid Mead's artwork, and I actually, met him and got my book signed by Sid Mead. Saw a presentation by him where he talked about the future and all this stuff,
Wow.
and so it was a lot. There's a lot of cool things going on then too. We felt like we were like, this we are the future, kind of. We didn't know we'd get old, or,
Oh, yeah.
but it was,
Yeah.
it's when you're young, it's a blast. It's so much fun. So, anyways, it's still. I mean, that's still part of it. I think I think it's just now just more. You got more of
Yeah.
it.
Tell me, how do you feel right now about making comics all these years later and the place that we're in right now? I mean, we know that the industry has gone through some changes and certain opportunities, certain doors have opened up for independent creators. How are you feeling overall?
Oh, I think it couldn't be better because of, like, I just mentioned you got you can take one comic book and spend months on it, and you can just make it as good as you can possibly. Well, that's the thing I wanted, because I mean, I said Marvel and you doing a monthly comic book. It's just, it's really frustrating. There's no time to even get better. You just got to, this is what it is. This is how good I am. Get it done. And there's no
Mhm.
breaks, and it was, I did not like that workload and there was no opportunity to practice and get better. Now you can make that stuff really good. You can really spend the time and work at your own pace. And I think we're going to move to the European model, where you're going to have graphic novels. That's what's happening. I think the comic book
Mhm.
companies the monthly comic book companies are just kind of, I think they're already going away. They don't want to admit it, but they're not making any money from sales.
Yeah.
Um, I watched, who Mike Barron is, right? The writer, the comic writer.
Um, I am not familiar with him, unfortunately,
Okay,
but
he
he
worked
rings a
on,
bell.
yeah, he worked on a lot of Punisher stuff, Daredevil, and
Cool.
Marvel. He actually, I discovered his work before that on a comic called Badger, First Comics.
Oh
It was
wow.
just a completely crazy character, pretty much like Mike, and it's a lot of fun. Actually, I drew one of Mike's stories in that Two Fisted Manly Tale, Nolan's
Oh
Two
wow.
Fisted Manly Tale. So I did the cover on that
That's
and
pretty cool.
thing. But what was I going to say? Now I'm lost in losing my thought.
You were talking about
But
Mike Barron, and we were discussing where we're at now in terms of comic books and the doors that have opened up, and where you think the mainstream industry is going as far as their book thicknesses and whatnot.
yeah, I mean, the I say that the comic book companies. Oh, I know I was talking about Mike Barron because he has this show with another guy called James Earl, and they do the Baron Earl show,
Mm,
and they interviewed Bob Layton, who was editor. I think he was editor in chief of Marvel. He was definitely editor in chief at Valiant Comics that sort of branched off of Marvel. But he drew Iron Man, and he's been in the movie industry. He knows the numbers, and
mm,
these guys going, they're not making any money. They can't possibly. I know the numbers, and they're not making any money from
mm.
these comic books. They're losing money. He goes, I thought they'd be gone 5 years ago. So this is someone
Wow.
who's in the know, who's saying these companies are just not. They can't. That's why you know people are like, well, why did their offices? Because they're not making any money on the comics anymore. They're just not selling. No kids aren't
Mm,
buying them. So that's going away, I think. But what's replacing it is for comic lovers that really enjoy the medium still will be more graphic novels like European Model, where someone will work on one comic book for a year, as you guys did, and you produce
yeah.
something really, really nice. And that's it takes about. I really think it takes about a year to do something a really good comic book, with all the
Yeah.
the fulfillment and printing and everything too. But
Yeah.
you're about it. But then you're going to have a collection on your shelf of really good books, and if you want to read comics, you've got the Marvel's got a library of of 60 years or 50 years, whatever, I don't know when they started, of reprints of stuff. You keep you busy,
That's a good
if you
point.
really love comics. So
Yeah,
they got a library.
it's interesting to think about what comic book readers are after these days, if they're looking for regular installments or they value those books, those larger volumes that they've got to wait for say 6 to 12 months. In our case, it was 24 months. We took
Yeah.
2 years to finish Kozel, which was too long. We would like to take less than a year next time, but
But the thing is,
yeah.
though, you're not the only book doing that. So, I actually think if you had too many books, but the price point, it wouldn't really work. You have you can, so instead of buying a couple months of really crappy books like 10 books, you maybe get a couple of crowdfunding books, a little more expensive but higher quality. I think people enjoy that
Mm,
more. I think that's a better
yeah,
model, really.
yeah, for sure. I I know that, and we're just very early on here as far as how far we can take this independent creator thing, this
Yeah,
creator-owned
or
titles,
just beginning. Yeah,
and this model, it's going to evolve, and people are going to try new things and push the envelope. It's really an exciting time to be in because it's not 100% set in stone what direction everything is going to take. I wouldn't say turbulent times because that paints it as a bad thing, but it's definitely, uh, and it is times of
it's changing.
uncertainty. But because of that, there's just so much that we now are free to be
Yeah.
able to try and do, and that's
Yeah.
an
Well, here's the thing.
amazing and awesome
It's
place
kind of
to be.
funny. it's kind of funny, but Marvel, with all this, political indoctrination stuff they're throwing in there,
Mm.
it's like nobody wants to read. No one wants to be lectured to. Even if you agree with them, you don't want a book that lectures to you. So they're destroying all their characters. And
They are, aren't they?
it's like, and it's like, but this is great because it's all of a sudden, the people are come looking for real stories that people tell you real stories, and here we come along with books that are really heartfelt, hard work, books that we really put our heart into, and there you go. It couldn't have been. That couldn't be better, completely destroying your character of Superman. Now, okay, take a look at my kind of character. It's pretty cool too. So
Yeah, and it's changing the character really. It's that is what it may not destroy it, but it'll certainly cause turbulence within that audience. And unfortunately, audiences don't always like change. They like to be able to
well,
get to know their characters and
yeah.
relate to them in a certain way. And if you're going to change them, it's got to be very artfully done in a way that somehow Im- improves upon the
It
character
can't, it
in
can't
the
be just
audience's eyes.
agenda. It can't be agenda. It's got to
No.
be story.
Yes.
Story is key, and that's not what they're doing. They're just coming in there and saying, "Oh, we got to change it to environmental character," and just like,
Yeah.
all right, here we go. When I'm done, hearing that speech kind of thing. It's like you want to if you. I mean, there's so much. We're saturated with so much information now. It's
Mm,
not like people don't know about the environment. It's like
absolutely.
it's like, so you can turn on the news, you can watch the news if you want. It's like people want to escape from all that. Once that's why I like Lord of the Rings. It's fantastic. And even that they're messing with Lord of the Rings. Like, what do you mess with my
Mm.
my book? One of my favorite books.
Yeah,
And they
it got a
just
little
can't
bit
help themselves.
propagandary. It's like at the end of the day, they just got to remember sometimes audiences, they aren't that complicated. They just want to see
No.
monsters and badass superheroes, warriors
Yeah.
battling one another, and it doesn't have to be any more smart or advanced
Yeah.
than that, really.
Hey,
Yeah,
some
no.
of my favorite movies are Pacific Rim,
Mm-hmm.
Real Steel, and it's almost like I don't
It's
care what the
fun.
story is. Monsters are beating the crap out of each other. Godzilla
Exactly.
movies, just Godzilla's walking through and he smashes a
Mm.
power plant. Well, that's cool.
What is not
I
to
don't
love
care.
about that? It's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people hated the Godzilla King Kong one. I liked it. I don't know.
It was really cool.
I
It
thought
was
it was
super
super
cool.
cool. I don't know. People, have you noticed another thing? People are really spoiled. Like, these special effects would be like unbelievably phenomenal, great, groundbreaking 20 years ago, and the people are like, meh, It's
Yeah.
like they look at this thing and go, oh my gosh, it looks completely real. Like, yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah. People can be a little bit unappreciative
I
sometimes
think
of the
so.
incredible advancements we've all made, and it's funny
Uh,
how quickly a lot of hard work and labor can be so easily dismissed with online reviews and talk shows these days. I and that's why as as much as it's true that the mainstream has made certain wrong turns, make no mistake, I still do know that work is put into these books to whatever level of degree that they're given, and that there was energy spent on it, on putting it
mhm.
together, and that portion of it I respect. It's just sometimes a shame that, man, that energy wasn't spent on something that had a story that was from the heart, that was built upon the right intentions, because in the end it would have hit the audience more on a more deeper level and crafted a stronger connection with them, instead of maybe making them feel like they are being dismissed or rejected by the book that they
Yeah.
had fallen in love
Or
with.
not, or they didn't love the characters. Like there was, I saw an interview once there was a stage panel, and there
Mm,
was the Batman writer, current Batman writer, and Frank Miller. And the
Mm-hmm.
Batman writer was saying, yeah, I'm putting my feelings into the things that happened to me and kind of project them into the character. And Frank Miller's like, no, you don't this is Batman. You're writing Batman, not writing you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's another
It's
these people like they're like thinking that they're going to do a groundbreaking story or something, and it's like, no, we just want to see Batman's story. We just want to see something cool.
mm,
That's
yeah.
it. And within the character, write the character. Doesn't seem
Exactly.
like that difficult. But I think we are facing another problem though, that this as far as comics go, and that is, and I don't know if exactly how for you. What did you grow up with the spinner racks in every
Oh
convenience
yeah.
store as I did? You'd walk
Um.
into a
Yes.
drugstore, convenience store. There's a spinner rack. There was it was like heaven to me. It was like this is the greatest thing ever to. And
Mm.
I'd always go because I didn't have much money to spend. I'd go through them all and pick the ones with the most action in them or the best art. From the start, I loved the great comic art because sometimes you get comic art and even those old stuff. It's kind of
Mm.
crap.
It's
But
interesting here in
uh,
Australia because we didn't have a huge selection of comic books. We would get comic books in newsagents primarily. As far as comic book stores, they were few and far between unless you went to the big city. Melbourne, where I live right now, for example, has a few very big and prominent comic book stores. But from the country where I grew up and the little towns there, you didn't see a whole lot of range when it came to comic books, especially American comic books.
yeah, well, actually, I think the comic book shop was the beginning of the end because
Oh,
what happened
okay.
was the rack with the racks and every convenience store, everybody read them because you're checking out of the grocery store. The kid grabs it like, can I, and everyone
Mm.
wanted to because they were right in front of you. When they went into the comic book shops, all of a sudden the your mom has to take you there, and mom
Mm.
walks in and sees boobs everywhere and says says we're out of here, uh,
Yeah.
and it's like so it just didn't work. The comic readership got older and older. All those people read them when they're kids, but now there's no replacement generation because the kids aren't seeing them. So they're
Yeah.
even though comic books are still a great medium, they're not getting exposed to them. There's kids don't even know how to read a comic. How do you go from panel up or down, or how do you read this thing? And I'm like, you really don't know how to read a comic book, but
Wow.
it's that can happen if you never see a comic book ever, uh, and that's kind of what happens out of the culture. And so that's actually I think that's the real reason Marvel and DC companies are dying because there's just no replacement kids coming up. So what it takes now is what we're doing now, where you have a show, you're interacting, you're teaching comics. It's like the you connect with people and then say, "Hey, I've got a book." So this is a new way of marketing, new way of you got to get that book in front of people. This is the new way to do it. And
Yeah.
but they're always gone. That's not coming back.
Mm.
Which actually I think they're not thinking out of the box because Graham Nolan, the guy who does he created that sort of thing with the Batman stories. Great idea. Where I was on the live stream, he goes, they should have the comic books in the lobby of these movies, things. So
Yes.
the people, the kids come out. That'd be a perfect place for them
It's a great
to
idea.
walk in. But they're not thinking outside the box. There's probably a million ways they could market the comics and put them out in front of kids, and the kids because kids love comic books. They still you give a comic book to the kid, they love it. Once I made a children's book and I put it and I gave it to my niece, and it was online, it was digital, and she just kind of looked at it like, she just was not interested. They want a piece of paper. They still, even a kid, I don't think they like the digital so much. I think they like to hold a piece of paper and a book in their hand. That's my
Mm.
experience. So I was actually glad. I was kind of like, oh, this sucks. No one's going to buy this book that I made online. But at the same time, I was thinking, maybe this is kind of good though, because the kids, I like the kids have books, paper, that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. It's one of our human senses, right? To be able to feel and to touch.
That's the and to
Yeah.
turn the
And
page and to that movement and you move your eye along even when you're doing reading a digital comic, you almost got to zoom in. That's awkward.
Mm.
touch a panel or something. That's not really, doesn't really work as well as
Yeah.
like you can immerse yourself into anything that breaks the illusion when you're reading a story, takes you out of the story. Not
Hmm.
good.
Yeah, maybe
So
that's it. There's definitely some level of intimacy there when you're actually able to hold the book in your hand. You think about it's not just the reading of the comic. I mean, think about the experience of reading your comic on the computer, for example. It's I mean, you're sitting. It's not just reading the comic, but you're sitting in front of your monitor at your desk, and you're clicking the mouse. That's a little bit less of a fun experience, I feel, at least when it comes to comics, than sitting in your couch flipping through those pages. I mean, that's
yeah,
so much
I think
more
it's different.
warm and
Yes,
authentic.
yes.
And I think
And
that's
even
what
if you
people
have
are
an
missing.
iPad that you're, if you could sit on the couch with your iPad, or think they have these nice, pretty big ones sometimes even.
True,
It's
that's a
still
good
something
point.
about looking at a screen and reading from a
Yeah,
screen. I don't know what it
yeah.
is, but
But you can feel
even
the
the drawing
texture of the
experience,
paper.
I kind of like the draw on the paper, the
Mm,
texture of the pencil on the paper even. That's
yeah.
so much more. It's I actually enjoy that more. I like coloring my stuff on the computer, like with Coz, where I drew it on paper, colored it in the
Yeah.
computer, because there's just so much you can. It looks so nice
So
when it's done.
much.
So,
Mm,
but and I could, I used to color my stuff, when I back in the Marvel days, I did those Marvel that, and
yeah.
but it doesn't. I scan it in, it doesn't look half as good as when you do it in Photoshop. The coloring just, I mean, you can do glazes, like the oil paint glazes over these things, and just get the skin tones any way you want. I mean, and it's not, doesn't take as long. It's just really beautiful.
Mm,
So
that's exactly it. And so, whether it's doing it traditionally, experiencing a comic book traditionally, or you're going the digital route instead, the fact stands it's a different experience for both, and people are going to have their preferences. And it would
yeah,
seem that, at least when it comes to reading comics, people still really love that kinesthetic engagement, the texture of the
yeah,
paper on their hands as they're turning the page, the actual action of moving their arm
yeah.
as they turn the page. That's all like it's
What about the
I mean it's the
collectability of it?
gameplay.
And the collectability of it.
The
The
collectability,
you have
yes.
people collect
Yes.
stamps. Well, what's
Hmm.
you wouldn't want, like, I got to collect stamps on my desktop computer. Like, that's no fun. You
That's no
want,
fun at
people
all.
collect coins that they collect, and they collect comics, and it's
Mm.
kind of it's fun to have a box, a rack of comics, a stack of comics, and it's like it's a tangible thing that you have. It's really neat. I don't know
Mm.
what NFTs are, but apparently I can't understand the technology of that. That there's a future in it, but I just can't imagine people miss that just to have a piece of paper. It's just so much better.
Mm.
Like I said, even the young are born in this super technology world. I think they still like paper, which is really cool. I think.
For sure. Yeah, NFTs are an interesting thing. Between you and I, Dan, I feel like they're probably some kind of weird scam that somebody has
They do.
made up.
That's what I think
I
too.
s- I was reading about them and I seen people promoting them, and I kept asking myself, am I missing something here, or does this
I'm
seem
saying the
like the
exact same
biggest
thing.
scam ever?
Who has started to explain it a little, and it started to make
Mm.
sense, was Dan Fraga. It
Ah,
was
I
it was
see. Yeah.
he was talking about it in such a way, and I forgot what the details were, but I see how this is sort of a investment type thing.
Hmm.
It's kind of tied into something that I don't know. It was kind of weird, but it started to make a little more sense. But I
Yeah,
still didn't get it. I was like, because it's almost
for
there, and then
sure.
whoosh, I know that.
Yeah.
But I think that
Yeah, big time.
if it made sense, we would already be. I feel like we would already kind of be all over it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
it's
something
quieting
about it's
down a little bit.
not right.
Mm,
So, but the
I
question is,
agree.
how do you get your comic in front of people? That's really it. We don't have this. That's going away. Uh, people like comics if they get them in front of them. How do we
Mm.
get them in front of question? I think obviously this is the new
Yeah.
medium, but
Yes.
and how do you sell to somebody? You have to be a salesperson and comic creator, which is that's a unique
Mm.
skill, you know, because we're all
It's
introverts.
tough.
We're totally introverted.
But I'll tell you one thing, one skill you'll never regret learning is marketing and sales. I think that that is a fundamental ability that can just help you in so many areas in life. And it doesn't have to be selling, you know, credit cards door to door or anything like that. If this is something that can help you just become a better communicator in general. I was learning about email copy for the 10th time just the other day. And one thing over the last few months that I've been ultimately getting from that is the importance of creating curiosity in what it is you're trying to sell. You don't want to tell people necessarily straight up what it is you want to present to them. You want to create some mystery around it and framing in a way that makes it even more appealing and exciting to get. And it's skills like that that I've started to use when I tell a story, for example, at the dinner table at night. Like, oh, how can I create a little bit of curiosity here and hook in my lovely lady who usually gets bored as hell the first minute into my stories. Now she's sitting there on the edge of her seat wondering what it is I'm going to say next. And
Uh-huh.
it's just very simple little things like that. For example, in the subject line of an email I might send out about my comic book, I might say instead of, "Hey, get my comic book Kozor today." Instead of doing that, I might say, "Important, read this." And it's like, who's not going to want to open that email? you know
Oh,
and
okay.
then they learn about the comic book inside that. It's a very simple example,
Right.
but it's something I've been testing out, and something that I would encourage everybody to learn about is online marketing and sales, especially just communication, because in the end, even what we're doing here, Dan, that's what we're doing. We're talking to one another, we're communicating, not just with one another, but we're very aware that people are going to be listening to what we're having to say. So we're trying to provide a little bit of value as we speak, and some insight and to our
Right.
experience as comic book creators. And this is where people are at. You've got to go to where your
Yeah.
audience is, and everyone's on YouTube these days. Everyone's on Spotify listening to this stuff. And so
Yes, I
it's
was
the
thinking
new way
of
of selling comics.
I was on Twitter, and every day I get up, I look at the independent comics movement and all the people I've gotten to know and their campaigns, and I try to promote at least one or two of them a day.
Hmm.
And but I'm starting to get a little bit better at it. Like I don't
Hmm.
just like, hey, say it. Like the other day, I said something about Graham Nolan's. I said something about Graham's Gallery of Ghoulish Delights or something like that.
So much more
Graham
interesting.
Nolan's Ghostly Gallery of Ghoulish Delights, and it just kind of like popped out. My inner Stan Lee just popped out. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like you start to, okay, I'm going to put up a post, but how can I make this kind of fun to read? You don't like, oh, just there, oh yeah, just because if you become annoying posting stuff without any color, any flair, any fun in it, it's no fun. So you got to be fun. You got to
Yeah.
enjoy it, and find something good about the character, and then bring that out and sell that and say this is exciting. And that's what it there's so many unique characters now that you can actually do that. It's like uh, uh, just I mean the gambit from Cyber Frog to Gem Shock to
Hmm.
Kozor to, I mean, there's just all kinds of different stories that are happening.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I say it's exciting right now.
It's so exciting. I
It's
love
turning
it.
into more into, again, the European model, but the Japanese model too, where they have stories about everything, ordinary things that are going on, fantastic things. In the U.S. it's just been superheroes all along. I think that may be kind of getting a little old. Here's a
Yeah.
laser shot. Okay, boom. That,
Hmm.
how many times. So I mean, if I see one more picture of Batman overlooking the city, I mean, you know, every cover.
Yeah.
What's this one? Oh, Batman overlooking the city.
That becomes
Like
so common.
how many hundreds or thousands of covers have featured Batman standing over the city majestically? Like, okay, that was cool in the '80s, like 50 years, like 40 years ago. Where it's just like they're still doing the same thing. You got to do something new.
Yeah, it just becomes so commonplace. People become blind to it at some point. They just don't notice
Yeah,
it anymore. We love novelty. That's the thing with us
yeah,
human beings. We like to see something different and interesting. So
right.
we've been talking for an hour and a half, and I meant this interview to only go for an hour. So uh,
This is
what
what
can I
happens
say?
at
We
play.
get talking. This is what
I mentioned
happens.
I mentioned players. That we do every week. We'll do that. Where all of a sudden it's going. We just want to do 2 hours. Gonna hardly keep it under 2 hours. Then we'll end the stream and we'll talk for another hour, like just with ourselves. It's like because I think
Oh
it's
yeah,
like I said, a lot of this is we haven't met very often, rare, and so this is
mm,
kind of new and just like all this is built up, and you're like, oh my gosh, talk about that and what's going on in the industry, and it's really it's really exciting. So it's if you're a comic book
for
lover, this is
sure.
just the gold of golden era. Just talk
Yeah.
comics. Wow.
Well, I feel like we
So
have so much more to talk about, and that you're definitely going to have to
yeah,
come back again multiple times, and we'll have to have more of
yeah,
these chats because they're
yeah.
just too
Well,
much
it's like hanging
fun.
out. It's like just we're just
Exactly.
hanging out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have a beer and
Yeah. I feel like
talk comics. I was hoping Corey would be here though. I wanted to talk to him too.
I did invite him. He said that I'd be better at doing the interview. So I was like,
Oh,
but you
okay.
should come along anyway. I know that you wanted to chat to Dan, and so
Right.
I'll
Yeah. Like I
make
said,
sure he's here next time.
it's not so much an
Mm.
interview. It's just hanging out. That's what I feel like. I'm
That's
asking
what
you
makes
questions
the
as much as you're
best
asking me
interviews.
questions. Yeah.
And I love that. That's so great.
Yeah.
But we will wrap it up here for today. We're gonna do this again though, Dan. And before before I hit the stop button, what I want to ask you is what you're working on and what you would like to promote. Tell us where people can find
Um,
you on the interwebs.
well, interestingly enough, I we were having this discussion the other day because of this shadow banning stuff that's going on.
Mm,
People talking more about creating your own. And I did have done this
yes,
before years ago, but I thought, you know what, I'm gonna revamp it. I go to Wix. Wix is so easy. I used this
Wix is
10
the
years ago.
best.
It's so user friendly. I mean, I can be I'm a dummy when it comes to stuff, and I I could do it. If I could do it, anybody could do it. So
Mm,
so in about 4 hours, I had and it looks good. So
great.
you can go to danlawlis.com, and that's
Perfect.
DanLawlis. Everyone thinks it's LESLIS. Dan Law,
How
and just
easy is
one S
that?
too. So LLIS, and I'm gonna have my stuff there. And actually, if you go to that page, you can click on the links to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Redbubble. I've
So
got some
easy.
merchandise up there. Right now, I'm featuring on the front page Mike Barron's private cover for one of his alternate covers. That's one of the comics
Mm.
gotten shadow banned.
Oh,
Apparently, we don't know what's going on. Everyone's trying to figure it out. A lot of people are freaking out about it. So their businesses
hmm,
are being harmed by this. Um, let's see. I still have this. I'm not sure if we're at 80 Terror. Von Black Terror is a great. He's reviving it. It's really wild. I did a pinup for it, and
looks amazing.
it's cool, but it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen 80K. I don't think they're quite there yet. So if anybody wants to check that out, buy a copy of Black Terror, get us over 80K. You get that
We
print
love
for
Von Klaus.
yourself
He's
and
great.
everybody else too. So, but apparently it's not going to happen until then. Boots and Heels. Camel Moon's got 3 days in his campaign. That I did the cover in that one too. So
Lovely.
that those are the three. That I mentioned. Yeah, Private American. Okay, so those are the three I'm kind of focusing on right now. Is Mike Barron, who wrote, I mentioned before, he wrote Private American, and his and I did an alternate cover for that. So, and Black Terror,
Awesome.
Boots and Heels. Those are the guys right now.
Great. That's awesome. Well, everybody head to danlawlis.com. I'll put a link to
And
that
and
in the
there's still maybe
description.
something for you that we're discussing, right? The something in the future,
Yes,
probably.
there is. There is absolutely, and we can definitely talk more
Okay.
about that. I want to get Dan Lawlis here. I want to get a few different artists to do some covers for the upcoming book that we've got
Yeah.
called Borok. And yeah, there's definitely some plans in motion for that, which are going to hopefully bear some wonderful fruit very, very soon. So I look
Yeah.
forward to
Hey,
telling
bring me on
everybody more
for
about
draw
that.
streams too, or anything like that. That's
I
fun, you know.
will. That'd be
Yeah.
fantastic. I'd love to see you in action. And I know
Yeah.
that the audience would as well. Everybody out there who wants to study your approach. It's great to see different artists take on actually
Yeah.
drawing
That
comic
doesn't. By the way,
books
it
and
doesn't. That
seeing their
doesn't.
process.
A lot of people, a lot of artists can't handle, don't like that. I have a problem with it. I really like
Oh,
it. I don't mind
fantastic.
it. It may not be
Well, then
that
I would
great when
I
it's
would love
done,
that.
but I think it's,
That'd
I
be
don't care
awesome.
if it's a piece of crap. There it is. You can leave
It's good to
it.
be in that place as an artist.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Well,
Well,
great to meet you. Great to see you. And we'll be looking forward to hanging out again. So
yeah, for sure. We'll
sounds
wrap
good.
it up there. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, Dan. Definitely would love to do it again real soon. Just before we go, be sure to head over to howtodrawcomics.net. Sign up to the email list there. You'll get a bunch of, well, I'll tell you, every time we release a free tutorial on the website, which there are plenty of, lots of education to fill your head with. We've also got videos that we post there, video tutorials. And of course, we've got our premium content, courses, workshops. There's even a mentoring thing that I'm doing every now and then through the website, which you can check out and know more about by signing up to the email list. There's some exclusive workshops that actually never see social media because I launched them only to the email list and they fill up. So if you actually want to know about those, take advantage of them and be a part of them, then you got to be on that email list. And there is one coming up, which is focused on sequential storytelling that I'm putting together as we speak. So be on the email list if you want to have the opportunity to be a part of it. All right. Other than that, that's all the promotion I've got. Oh, Kozor, Descent into Madness is actually winding up by the end of next week. So if you haven't got the book yet, totally get it. If you like franchises such as Berserk, The Witcher, dark horror fantasy, medieval horror, that kind of thing. Corey and I have worked a long time on putting this book together. We put our heart and soul into it. It looks absolutely beautiful, and we're stoked with the quality of the end product. And we quite frankly, more than anything else, just want this book in as many hands as possible so that it can be experienced, so that all that hard work, every line we put into it, can be witnessed by backers who really appreciate what we've made for them. So I've got a
Hey, there's
link
a
to
friend of
that.
mine in there, right? Too. Like,
Yeah,
isn't there?
exactly. Yes, there is. And Dan Lawless's print is just stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. We'll use that for the thumbnail of this interview, I think,
Okay.
because it's
Yeah.
and it just we provide it as a free additional poster to what we initially promised to all the backers, and it's like a Frank Frazetta poster. That's how it feels to me. It's got the same vibe.
Thanks.
Absolutely
That's
love it.
that's quite a generous compliment.
Oh, that's why we hired you in the first place, because we wanted that exact vibe emanating off of it. So there's a lot of happy backers who have received that thus far because we're in fulfillment now. And once we close up the campaign, we're going to be ordering in the final print run and just fulfilling everybody, hopefully by the time Christmas is here. So yeah, you got 1 week to jump on board, get your copy of Kozor. There's one there with your name on it. Just hit the link
Okay.
below and check it out. All right, other than that, until next time, keep on drawing, keep on practicing, and we'll see you in the next video / podcast episode / interview. All right, bye bye for now.